This is the Simply Love Jesus podcast, where we explore life and faith through the lens of one question, which is, what does it mean to simply love Jesus? Well, I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. I don't know how this is physically possible, but over the course of my Thanksgiving, I somehow gained 4 pounds in a matter of only a couple days of eating. So maybe it was the food. I don't know. Maybe it's just something about Ohio. But I was up in Ohio. I ate food. I gained some pounds. Wasn't a happy experience. I mean, it was a good experience. It was a very filling experience. But you know what I mean. Well, anyways, I want to talk to you today about forgiveness. Now, it's not very topical of me because typically around this time of the year, I'd be like, we're going to talk about thankfulness. No, I want to talk about something that's been on my mind a lot lately. And that is the idea of forgiveness, helping us truly sit back for a moment and understand how loving Jesus helps us to forgive ourselves and to forgive other people. It's a topic we've talked about in the past, but I really believe that it's something that we should go back and remind ourselves of. I think even the last time that we talked about forgiveness on this podcast, like, so much has happened even in my life since we last talked about it. And so just as there are people in my life that I need to forgive regularly, there are people in your life that you probably struggle to forgive as well. Maybe it's yourself and you struggle to forgive yourself. And I really believe that Jesus gives us a better understanding of how we can forgive other people and forgive ourselves. In Ephesians chapter 4, verse 32, it says that we should forgive one another just as God through Jesus forgave us. And I think in this passage, just when I was reading it the other day, it really just brought to my mind something. It's the idea that when we struggle with forgiveness, it's often because we forget just how much we have been forgiven. Let me say that one more time. Those who struggle to forgive others often have forgotten how much they have been forgiven. When you are feeling angry towards someone, when you are angry towards yourself, or you're bitter, maybe someone has hurt you or broken your heart, and you're struggling to forgive that person, it's because you have forgotten that Jesus forgave you. God has forgiven you and I of so many things. I mean, choosing to be selfish and choosing to sin just once at any point in our life deserves death. Like, that is the punishment that is deserved. That is the only way that thing or that wrong can be made right, is through death. And so we deserve death for our sinfulness, our selfishness, that me-focused nature that we follow. And yet Jesus was tortured and murdered so that we could be forgiven. And so when Jesus rose from the grave, when we choose to follow him, we find that forgiveness because of Jesus. We didn't do anything. It was God's grace. We didn't deserve it. And yet God loved us so much that he allowed his only son to be sacrificed and to take the punishment that you and I deserve so that we could be forgiven. And we were forgiven so that we may then in turn forgive other people who have hurt us, and forgive ourselves when we are hard on ourselves and we are cruel to ourselves. forgiveness is something that, and I'm not saying forgiveness is easy. It's not. It is very difficult. There are people in my life, or I guess to be more specific, people who are no longer in my life that I still struggle to forgive. And some days I feel okay. And then other days I'm reminded of just how deeply I was wounded and hurt. And then I have to kind of go through the whole forgiveness process all over again because I just hate that person. And I know you deal with that too. I know there are people in your life who have hurt you or wronged you, and it doesn't make sense. They don't deserve forgiveness. And you're right, they probably don't. But neither do you. I mean, we don't deserve forgiveness either, yet God forgave us. Jesus calls us to forgive other people anyways. And it doesn't matter how many times they may have wronged us. God still wants us to forgive other people. That is not an easy thing to ask. But it is unfortunately very simple to ask. It's simple. You just forgive them. You forgive them. It's as simple as that. It's not complicated. It is not easy. It is very, very, very difficult. But it is simple. And I believe that when we are having a hard and difficult time forgiving someone else, it's because we have forgotten that we have been forgiven. We forget just how much we have been forgiven of. It's not easy. It's not easy. But I believe that when we choose to love Jesus, that is where forgiveness is made easier. It is simpler. When I start with a question, what does it mean to simply love Jesus? When I ask that question, for me, it just forces me to think about what Jesus has done for me and how Jesus did not deserve to be tortured or murdered, and yet he willingly went to the cross and endured excruciating amounts of pain. He did all of that because God loves me. God loves you. That is the only. That's the reason. He did it because he loves you. And to think that God, the creator of. Right now, I'm sitting in my room right now, looking outside the window, and I'm looking at these trees and these leaves. Literally watching leaves fall from these trees and watching maybe one or two birds fly by. It's currently 5 p.m. right now, so you got that nice, bronze evening is passing through, and it's about to be dark, and then the what's going to happen next? The moon's going to come up, and the stars are going to be shining, and it's just the majesty of nature. And to think that the one who created all of that beauty and the glory of nature and the stars and the sky, all of that, and he chose to willingly die for me. Like, when I put myself in that perspective, I just feel so absolutely small. Like, I don't deserve that. What you've created is infinitely bigger than anything I could have offered. Like, anything that I am. Who am I? I'm just a guy who struggles with so many things. And, if I were to even do my best to measure up and say how much I love people and how generous I am to people and how willing I am to care and be kind to even the cruelest and most messed up of people. And I would go anywhere and do anything. I could try to my best to measure up, and I would just fall infinitely short. Like, it wouldn't even, I would say, like, all of my accomplishments in life and every good thing that I've possibly could do or be, or the goodness I could possibly muster out of my soul would be like the size of a grain of sand on the shore. And God's grace and goodness and glory is just the infinite vast amount of ocean and everything else around. Like, I can't possibly measure up to all of God's goodness and glory, and yet he suffered because he loves me, because he loves you. And when I just sit and think about that, man, I would just want to know who he is. Like, why? Why would God love me? Why would God love me that much? What could I possibly do? What could I possibly do? Because that is so much love. I would just have to know I would just want to spend time with them. Like, why? I would ask myself, why? Why would you love me? And that would just lead me to then just opening the Bible and just spending time with God. And the more that I spend time with God, then I realize that I'm not the only person that God loves. I am not the only person that God died for. The hard thing that I have to remember is, just as much as God loves me and died for me and wants me to be in his family, he also died and loves the person who caused me so much pain, the people in my life who have caused me so much pain, the people that I struggle to forgive. God also has that much love for those people. And when I ask myself, well, God, what would make you happy? What could possibly make it up to you? What could I possibly do for all the love that you've given me? What could I possibly do to return the favor? And that's when I read in the Bible, and and Jesus talks to his disciples, and he says, you should love those who you hate. You should forgive those who hurt you. Yeah, I guess I should then. Right? Like, you're like, okay, you think of all the glory and the majesty and everything that God offers me, and all you want me to do is just love somebody who hurt me one time? And sure, they may cause me, it may cause me pain more in my life, but in the span of when all of eternity is concerned, like, it's a small ask. So, okay. Forgiving that person doesn't feel as heavy of a weight as it did before. Forgiving someone when I then step into God's, when I try to look at my life, and I try to look at the world, and I try to look at the things through the eyes of heaven, through God's eyes, forgiveness doesn't feel as heavy as it did before, because I am put into perspective, and I sit back and I am just reminded, like, just how painful my sin is. To think that if a person can cause me such hurt and break my heart, just imagine how much I must have cast hurt to God. It says in the book of Psalms that sin grieves the heart of God. How patient has God been with me? yet he loves me and forgives me and is very patient with me. And how much more patient and loving should I be to those who hurt me? I don't know if it's because of the things that I've been through in these past couple years, but I find myself now a lot more sensitive than I was before. And that's saying something, because I was already very sensitive before. But even more so, I found myself quicker to hold grudges. Like, I found myself quicker to be like quicker to be bah humbug, whatever, put on my Grinch face. And I think it's just a greater challenge to love and to be more like Jesus, who is infinitely more patient with me and has had to deal with so much more. He doesn't just have to deal with the hurt that I cast to him. He has to deal with the hurt that everyone casts to him, and yet he still loves me. Like, I don't know. I just think at that point, yeah, like, I could stand to forgive someone. But the beautiful part is that when I love somebody, when I choose to show forgiveness, when I choose to forgive them in my heart, it frees me to go and love other people. It frees me to go and show kindness to others. It frees me to go and walk in front of the first person that I see and just go to them with an open hand and an open heart, willing to just pour out God's kingdom onto them, because I'm not being held back by my own selfishness. And when I don't hold back on the love and grace that God desires for me to give to others, I can then share God's kingdom with that person wholly and purely. And then, who knows? You never know. Like, that could be the one interaction that turns the table for someone. That it just creates a shift in their heart, and they could end up joining God's kingdom and becoming part of God's family. And then they themselves are going to go and love other people and experience that forgiveness, which will then go and create more people to join the family. And then just next thing you know, it just creates a ripple effect. And all we had to do was forgive. When we struggle to forgive others, it's because we have forgotten how much we have been forgiven.